Hello everyone, this is Rachel here, the Modern Shaman. Thanks for being with me for another YouTube Q&A video this week. If you are new to this channel, I am glad you're here. You have come to a wonderful place of connection and our shared humanity, which is working through this spiritual incarnation in a human form. We are helping each other along this journey and this path. This channel in particular, my heart is to be a resource of shamanic wisdom and psychic development advice. So you guys send in the questions and I simply answer. So that being said, if you want to go further in your spiritual development, to learn psychic development, shamanic awareness, the sacred intuitive arts, I have my masterclass teaching curriculum on my website, as well as personal sessions that you're welcome to book through my online booking calendar. That is also available on the website, themodernshaman.net. I always just kind of guide you guys there if you're wanting further connection with me than these videos and this content provides. I also want to say, before I get into the question this week, that I am hosting a body and soul retrieval in a couple weeks now, April 14th. It's a Sunday afternoon and it is going to be a beautiful time of healing and working through a soul retrieval ceremony with the addition of a biodecoding event that I'm hosting. So we're kind of blending modern biodecoding, which is learning kind of that language of the organs and the parts of the body that store specific trauma, and then working on the soul level as we do a shamanic journey to clearing, purifying, and regaining those aspects of our soul that may have been lost through trauma. So if you're interested in that, I would love for you to message me. You can reach out through YouTube, through my website, through my social media channels, really any and all of those modalities that you can message me. I can give you further information there. All right, here's the question for today. It says, Rachel, hi, I am a big fan. I wondered if you could explain why it seems like I repeat patterns in my life, relationship patterns and so on. I think that I learned my lesson. I ask spirit to bring clarity and healing. I cut cords, but patterns seem to come back, even if they come back in someone else doing what I used to do. Yeah, mama, patterns. You know, it's interesting. I'm going to share with you the shamanic perspective of these patterns in our life, but I think that various cultures and various religions language it in different ways, whether it's called karma or sins of the fathers. We tend to carry energy from lifetime to lifetime because remember, your soul is really having one eternal experience, and each lifetime is like the clothes that we put on, or a singular day on our journey and our life story, and our life being the larger life of our soul. And it goes lifetime to lifetime, and there's really no barrier there that separates it other than our kind of memory loss that happens through the use of this human brain. Even though our DNA, our intuitive memory, our soul memory is stored on a much deeper level, and we do have recognition through our intuition of certain events and traumas. In my perspective, these patterns come from when there has been soul loss, when that's occurred. And I have a previous video, if you want to go back in the archives, about what soul loss is. But shamans believe that we can lose little aspects or fractals, splinters or pieces of our soul. And when I say lose, you don't really lose, but you essentially give it away, or it gets placed someplace else and it's stored and kept and harnessed there. Now, this can happen through moments of trauma. And think about for the fact that we've had many, many lifetimes, thousands of lifetimes on this earth. And think about just what we know of the history of this earth. And that's not even including prehistory, because there's so much of the earth's experience that we don't even have record of in our current written history of the earth. But just noting what we do know, think about the brutality, the gruesomeness of so much of our human history. And your soul has most likely been a part of that. So there have been a lot of traumas inflicted upon humankind and just us as a species. And when that happens, there are aspects of us that cannot humanly handle the level of emotional brutality, difficulty, physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain. And so we disassociate from our physical body, meaning our soul sort of leaves, because we cannot go through that experience and maintain a rational mind without losing our sense of mind, without losing our sense of identity and just ability to sustain a human existence. So we disassociate in that moment from the trauma. And that is a psychological way of explaining what is happening when we have soul loss. We pull part of our soul away and we leave that fractal behind in that incident, with that person, with that event, with that location, with that people group, with that memory. And we move on with the existence of ourself and our body with that fractured part of our soul. And this is typically how most of us live. We just live our best life that we can with what we have. I'm sure you've heard that phrase. They were doing the best with what they knew, okay? As a bit of forgiveness for the sins of our fathers or those that came before us and the ancestors and some of the damage that they did from their fractured sense of self. You can also have soul loss when it's called gradual soul loss, when you kind of give away parts of yourself, parts of your sense of soul freedom, like why you came here on this earth, because you get into a sense of contract or commitment or responsibility where you say, okay, you know what, I'm gonna have to give up my dreams, what I felt like my purpose was on earth, because I need to put food on the table. And this is where we get into very difficult situations where people may prostitute themselves, very literally, or more metaphorically, where maybe you're working for someone else, but essentially you're just giving away yourself for a company, for someone else's dream, for your boss, and you start to slowly have gradual soul loss. We do this in relationships, we do this for our children, we do this a lot of times in a loving state, but it's a sacrifice of the soul that over a prolonged period of time, we start to feel like we lose ourselves. We forget who we are. We forget what we're about, like what even makes me happy anymore. This happens quite a bit. And this type of gradual soul loss also will get us into a point where the patterns come back. So this is where I get to the answering of your question. It took me a little bit to explain soul loss, but essentially from a shamanic perspective, patterns, or this cyclical spiral of life, right? This kind of golden ratio, or this spiral in nature, our human nature has the same type of spiral where we will come back and have the opportunity to come back to a experience or a similar scenario. Maybe it's not the same relationship, not the same person, but it's somebody who embodies similar qualities. And we are given opportunity to bring back part of ourself that was lost from having given away part of our soul previously in a similar patterned relationship or experience. So this is where we can forgive ourselves, forgive the other individuals see the pattern in a different perspective, because hopefully the previous experience will have grown our soul to the point to where the evolution gives us new insight and new perspective, and we're able to regain a sense of self from going through that pattern once again from a higher perspective and a more evolved state, or an ascended aspect of ourself. And when this ascended part of your soul goes through that, it regains its strength or its power. And this is calling back those aspects of the self that have been lost through soul loss or a fracturing of the soul. We do ceremonies. Obviously, I talked earlier about how I'm putting on a soul retrieval ceremony, and that is calling back in a very direct and specific manner of those aspects of your soul that have been lost. But essentially, patterns give you the same opportunity. So if you notice that you are cycling back to similar patterns of people, then it is your opportunity to regain your sense of power, to call back the aspects of you that knew who they were before, and replay that to where you actually are pulling, not from the other, but from where you once lost and set aside that aspect of yourself. You're pulling back your strength, your sense of identity, your words. A lot of times these fractured aspects of the self also leave vacancies in our chakras. So you may be pulling back your words and feel like, I can finally stand up for myself and say what I've wanted to say to my boss, or to this new boss figure that has the same weird traits that my previous boss had. And now I have gained a sense of a sovereignty and authority, and I know who I am, and I know what I have to offer. And so I'm speaking and essentially calling back that energy of that soul loss and healing your throat chakra at the same time of that vacancy of energy in your own soul returning to yourself. So it's a beautiful opportunity in the way that nature spirals us back around into a sense of wholeness and health. And so that's oftentimes why we see patterns arise in our life. I hope that that gives you kind of an ignited fire underneath you to know that the patterns are not a sign that you've done something wrong. In fact, it's the opposite. It's that you're ready to bring back your power from a new perspective and to stand in the authority of who you are. And when I say power, I mean the strength of your own soul, right? I don't mean dominance. I mean a sense of authority of like, I know who I am and I don't give those aspects of myself away unknowingly. Instead, I do it consciously, and they are given as a gift instead of feeling like something's taken from me. When we have trauma, that's a little different, because the patterns sometimes come back and they open that wound, but it's a softer aspect that can bring forgiveness and healing, and then authority and power and strength. Sometimes those traumatic experiences of soul loss have to be worked through ceremony or through metaphorical healing, psychic surgery. There's a lot of that, ancestral lines that also can be healed through a greater sense of ceremony. But patterns are a wonderful way for our evolution. And I hope that encourages you that if you see them, you're on the right path. Continue. All right, I'm going to sign off here. Blessings. I'll be back next week with another video.